and welcome back to Mind Over Matter. I'm your host, Anya, and today we are about to unlock a conversation that travels beyond neurons and neurotransmitters into the realms of soul and spirit. Joining us is Carlos Davidovich, international TEDx speaker, executive coach, and author of Five Brain Leadership. Carlos doesn't just talk about neuroscience, he fuses it with the sacred, showing us that leadership, growth, and even decision making are deeply spiritual acts. If you've ever felt the divide between science and soul, you're in the right place because today we are about to dissolve that line. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Carlos. It's an honor to have you.
It's great to be invited. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, Carlos, you have said life is spirituality, and that's powerful. Can you unpack what that really means for someone navigating a high performance world?
Okay. So, to do that shall not easy. First of all, we need to agree that it's not easy on what spirituality is. Because normally or in general, we connect it with religious, practice. And in my way to understand spirituality, spirituality goes beyond religion. So involves religion, don't get me wrong, but spirituality is the way we live life in general. And I know people that they define themselves as atheist or agnostic, and they are profound spiritual people in the way they deal with life, in the way they connect with other people, and in the way they live their own personal.
Mm-hmm. Right. And do you think the modern corporate world is ready to embrace this spiritual perspective? Or are we still resisting it under the guise of professionalism?
It's a great question. Love it. I will say that the answer is depends where are you watching. In my experience, and I tell you, the reason I got into neuroscience, being medical doctor, and to find out about how the brain works, was mainly because my first input was around spirituality. And I think everything is connected. So, based on your question, I tell you what I believe. I'm convinced that the world, at least let's call it Western world, is connecting step by step, is connecting the dots in the right way. Why I say this? Few years ago, nobody was talking about mindfulness. Few years ago, nobody was talking about Buddhism in Western world. Few years ago, nobody was connecting meditation with business like is today. And I just told you three parameters that shows how all these spiritual practices that exist for thousands of years are getting to the mainstream connect are yeah things that people start understanding their practical application in our daily life, let's say in our daily business life. So today you can read people from coming from the Ivy League universities in the United States or around the world that are top in Wall Street and financial world, and they will talk about qigong, they will talk about tai chi, they will talk about meditation. So for me, those are very strong parameters that even though you're right, many people still are in denial or they don't care about this. I will say that we are moving in the right direction. And more, what people is doing is not adopting 100%, let's say, those practice in the way they were created 1,000 years ago. No, no. They are adapting those kind of things to the new world. In other words, for me, it's the same bringing meditation, bringing mindfulness, bringing all these kind of concepts to the way I live every single day. That means that the spiritual world is, I would say, is closer to the mainstream more and more.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I've seen leaders transform the moment they prioritize alignment over achievement. But what's the neuroscience behind that shift?
Okay, from my perspective, and you know that I like to describe different brains. I like to describe, let's say, a survival brain, the reptilian, emotional, rational, intuitive. Those are different narrative of different parts of our brain that I like just to represent, let's say, to use it as a metaphor, that we have many brains. I'm convinced that all those characteristics should not be in charge all the time. I'm convinced that exists inside of our brain, and it's not only me, there are a lot of research around this. What we can call it from the spiritual understanding, the higher self. So, a part of me that can see the whole picture and can determine in in a way what to do or how to do it, and that is located in some part of our brain. So everything that we express as a human being has a representation in the brain. It's not by chance this need to look for something beyond what we see. It's not by chance that we start understanding that reality is not just what we see, what comes through our senses. All this comprehension comes for the capacity of our brain start sensing what is going on beyond beyond the obvious. And beyond the obvious, there are tons of reality that we are interacting all the time. For instance, we know that the brain receives around 40 millions in bits of information per second, and we are conscious only of 44. So, sorry, what I said is millions of inputs, and our brain is conscious only of 44. It sounds like nothing. But what that, if we read all this information in the right way, we can understand that the whole body and the brain mainly is dealing permanently with an unseen and unknown world. And this unseen and unknown world, not conscious world, includes everything. And when I say everything, is not just the reality that we see. So the brain has an antenna that can sense everything that is around. The issue is that to keep us sane, mentally sane, the same brain needs to filter all that information. When I share with my students or audience that only 44 pieces of bits of information we are conscious of, everybody, the first reaction is, oh my God, that's nothing. And then what I say is, thanks God that that works in this way. We cannot deal with too much information from our rational and conscious mind, but our brain can deal with all the rest. I don't know if I explained myself properly.
You did, and that's amazing. And in five brain leadership, you talk about mastering instincts. How do these brains communicate with our spiritual self, or are they the same thing?
Good point. I my brains, the closest to the spiritual world is the intuitive brain, what we call intuition. Intuition is magic, okay? I love magic, but it's not magic. Intuition is one of the most powerful and perfect algorithms, like Google. You send a question to Google or to ChatGPT and you have a response. It looks like magic. No, no, no. It's the backstage of tons of information that is connected in seconds. The brain does exactly the same. And the doorway to reach that is what we call intuition. So, from all those brains, intuition, I will say, is the closest to spirituality, not instinct, because there is a misunderstanding that instinct define intuition. No. Intuition is an information that will come to me apparently from nowhere that tells me what to do. I'm not saying 100% right, but most of the time it is. You know that in English, there is a saying when at least you need to thought something and you don't know the answer, you did all the analysis and you don't have the answer. So there is a very saying, sleep on it, you know? So sleep on it, that is a traditional, way to say it, is no by chance. When we go to sleep, the brain that is completely disconnected is the rational brain. But the rest of the brains are completely awake and connected. And if we disconnect the rational brain in the next level, that is in a specific highway, doesn't matter the technicality, the default mode network is the name technically, is connecting absolutely everything that we have in our brain. Then, most of the time, I'm not saying all, next day, you have the answer. And you say, I can have the answer. That just sounds really magic. It's not. It's because we were able to let our brain to work at the right level to connect the information and to find the response. When we say the brain knows what to do all the time, but it's not easy to grab. So it's not easy to reach that information. So now, through meditation techniques, you can awake the same highway, and then through a meditation process, you can arrive to conclusions or to solutions that the rational brain was not able to reach. Make sense?
Absolutely. And does that mean spirituality can be trained or defined just like any other neutral pathway?
I will say, in my understanding, I cannot give you scientific data. Spirituality is, let me say like this, is the energy that supports the whole system. It's like the fundamental network behind in the way that we function as a human being. So I like to see spirituality as a net that contains all the rest. And some people are more conscious of that net than others. So some people can access to that net easily or easier than others. But spirituality exists. We are being conscious or not is beyond our conscious mind. Spirituality is, I will say, the foundation, the support of the whole system. Again, spirituality maybe in certain circles has a very negative marketing. But the truth is that the real, my understanding of the word spirituality is the fuel that give life to all the rest. That's sorry if I'm very provocative on this, but it's the way I think.
hmm It's wild to think that meditation and spiritual practice might not be woo, they're wiring. And I think that reframes the conversation for skeptics.
Yeah, but I tell you, also in the same way that we need to define spirituality in a different way, not so in a narrow-minded way of religions, and with all respect, also meditation we need to define in a different way. Meditation is not in a chair trying to calm down the mind. Meditation could be walking meditation, could be running meditation, could be doing some physical practice, sports, not only Tai Chi or yoga. So, what I mean is, meditation is a state of mind that I will define as stop and wait. Stop and wait to be able to see inside, not only outside. Meditation, and I know many people that can reach meditation states even they don't know that they are in meditation state. But this access direct information, just stopping and listening inside is amazing. So we need to take care about how people define words, and we need to take care how much prejudice we have regarding words. Like, to understand that meditation is a common practice beyond understanding the technicality of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And how do you personally reconcile science, like something measurable, with spirituality, which is often intangible?
Science, again, is evolving all the time. And one of the biggest, I will say, mistakes of certain part of humanity was to cut a line between science and spirituality. Personally, I think they're completely connected. And personally, I think that science will help us a lot to take even spirituality to the next level. You will find, the typical saying, I mean, I need to see to believe. And for me, it's exactly the opposite saying. I need to believe to be able to see. That is how the brain works. If you don't believe, I can put in front of you the most marvelous things, you will not see it. But it's not about it doesn't exist. If we measure the world only based on what we see or what we touch or we understand, it's a quite limited world. If I see people able to do things in this life, I mean, through their physical body or their mental mind or whatever, they cannot do it. I need to understand that doesn't mean that it's not possible. So I love to see all those achievements of people doing things at any level, and spiritual level mainly, that maybe I will never be able to do it in this life. But because a human being was able to do it, one human being means that I can do it. And that is the way we need to understand the unity of mankind. So, and that's why we need to understand that this is not about competing, this is about collaboration. And it's about to helping each other. Because at the moment that you can do something I can't, in some way, I am doing exactly the same in my mind.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And have you ever faced pushback from colleagues or clients when bringing these two worlds together?
Ah, depends. I mean, I'm very respectful of people in general, but when I see the possible, I tell you something. I coach mainly executive people from companies all over the world. They are very rational people, analytical people, and they are not looking for something else, or they don't. Let's say they don't believe in this kind of spirituality things. In my experience, and of course it's not so large because I'm just one person, it's completely the opposite. I cannot tell you statistically, but most of my clients, in some moment in the coaching process, we start sharing conversations about topics that are beyond the rational mind. And I will say 90% of them are totally open to this. This is something that I need to clarify. Of course, because they respect me, because I'm a medical doctor and I'm executive coach and I was working in companies, so I can speak their language. I'm not coming from a monastery that will be more, maybe they will react to that. So at the moment I'm coming from the same world, that opens also their mind to believe and to be open to discuss these kind of things. And because I don't frame it as I would say, traditional religion, I frame it as the way of living life, then they start sharing experiences that maybe they never share with anyone. Experiences that cannot be explained by a rational brain. And then, of course, that gives the opportunity to connect in a completely different way and to reach not only different level of understanding, but also a different level of productivity in their life.
Hmm. This blend is controversial, and that's why it matters. Like, if we don't make space for both data and depth, we will miss the full picture.
Exactly. So, you know that many high executive, many, I know, I'm not saying everyone, but they go through, always they go through life crisis. Sometimes it's just a psychological crisis, sometimes it's an emotional crisis, sometimes it's a physical crisis. And I would say 100% of them in that moment they stop, that they can stop. They are stopped, not able to stop by themselves. They start thinking that is something else. And because many times, in many ways, they don't know how to define, that's what I help them to be clear about, to define this perception of something else. Again, and I told you before, the brain has a huge antenna that sense everything that is going on around me at this level, in this realm, and in many others. If we cannot be conscious of that, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, what I'm trying to say is there are tons of books and tons of stories of top successful achievers, these hyperachievers, people that in some moment, normally, in general, like through a crisis in life, they start thinking that maybe reality is not what they thought it was. And they start including that part of life that they were missing. And that was the reason they were never feeling complete. So you're right. If you don't think about this, you are missing at least half of the picture of the movie. You don't see the movie in the right way.
Hmm. Yeah. And can leaders be spiritual without being religious? And how can they embody this without alienating others?
It's a great question. You have really fantastic question. The answer is yes. You can be spiritual without being religious. The answer is absolutely yes. And again, let's go to the definition of spirituality. Spirituality is a way to live life. It's in the way to connect with people. It's in the way you listen to people. It's the way you respect people. That can be framed in a religion, yes, and it's okay, but also can be framed just in the concept of ethic and morality. And I know many people that they don't feel or they don't feel to belong to any religious, but at the same time, they're highly spiritual. So, spirituality, again, is how much you take care about life in many aspects. And for time, well, for millions of people on earth, is defined by a religion, and it's fine, it's totally okay, but not for everyone. And that also, it doesn't mean that those people are outside of the realm of spirituality. And when many times I'm coaching my clients and they say something that sounds very spiritual, and I tell them, hey, this is what you're saying is quite spiritual. And the first reaction is they don't connect the dots. What do you mean? And then when I explain my understanding of the definition of spirituality, they fully understand. Again, I'm very respectful of any religion, any belief, any way to believe how the world exists or why, the cosmogony of the world. But I don't want to limit civilization only around religion. I think that a different way to understand and it still can be framed as spirituality.
It's a fine line, isn't it? Like, spiritual leadership isn't about conversation, it's about consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. And it's good that you brought up this fine line and any most of the time misunderstood. So spirituality is not everything is okay. Spirituality is not everybody is good, let's say, in my daily life. Spirituality is your level of awareness about yourself, number one, and those around you. So it's not about accepting everything. This is not spirituality. More aware I am of myself, the way I function, I mean, more aware I will be of how others are functioning. There is a basic misunderstanding in human communication, and it's a universal misunderstanding of considering that people sees the world in the way I do. Or because I see it in this way, everybody will do it the same. So we always are looking for people like me. And that is biggest bias. Because the working life is not find people like me. The working life is to learn languages. When I say languages, it's a metaphor, a way to communicate with people that are exactly not like me. We are different. There are many differences, many nuances in human behavior. And I always present it based on my experience and one of the book I wrote, the personality DNA, that we have different style of personality. And this is not we are all the same. We have the right to, I would say we have the same right, but we need to understand how to talk to each other. We need to, and I say it in a funny way. It's a course of languages, you know. So I need to understand that I see things in this way, and you see it differently. So with you, I will speak differently. I will not speak exactly in the way I speak to me. So acknowledging the differences is a way to increase self awareness and to increase spirituality all over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Carlos, thank you for this soulful science track. You have not just bridged two worlds, you have invited us to live with more presence, purpose, and power. And to our listeners, remember, your brain and your soul aren't enemies, they're teammates. Start listening to both. And if you love this episode, drop a review, share it with your favorite deep thinker, and stay tuned for more powerful conversations right here on Mind Over Matter. And until next time, stay curious, stay conscious.